So I know a lot of our learners are going to be asking this question. What should I be looking out for in my marriage? What should I be cultivating in my marriage? What practically would Bob Waldinger say that I need to do right now so I can have the kind of marriage that's going to make me wind up happy and well? Can you give some practical tips on that?
Yeah, I guess I could. First of all, do everything you can not to take the relationship for granted. Even good relationships become kind of ho-hum. I mean, we go through the same routines with each other. And, if we're raising kids, if we're holding down jobs, if we're doing all the things we have to do in life, you just kind of, your partner becomes your tag team mate. And we can forget to pay attention to each other. And by livening up the relationship, by doing new stuff, going out on a date night, just taking a walk when you don't usually take walks together, any of the things to loosen things up, loosen the routines up, liven them up, allow yourself to be curious and interested in your partner again can go a long way. The other thing is that what we found was that arguments are inevitable. So conflict is going to happen in every relationship. And actually, that turns out not to be the predictor of which relationships are going to last. That the predictor in our study seems to be whether there's a bedrock of affection between two people, even if they argue. And that if there's that bedrock of affection and respect, that predicts stability in the relationship. So the advice I might give would be to pay attention to cultivating that affection and respect. And that may mean like reminding yourselves of what it was like when you two first got together, going through old photos, doing romantic things again, logging in those kind of good times and engineering those good times because they're not things that will happen all by themselves. They do need to be engineered.
One of the key conclusions that your predecessor at the Harvard Study of Adult Development came to, George Valiant, he wrote a paper that said that the 7 habits of people who wind up happy and well, one of them is having a healthy coping technique, that problems are inevitable. And that's kind of what you're talking about when it comes to problems that inevitably crop up in relationships, right? Friendships or especially marriages, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think the most frequent bad coping technique is to shut it off, suppress it, don't talk about it, pretend it's not happening. That doesn't work. By and large, eventually it catches up with you in your relationship. And so at a moment when you're both receptive, talking about it ends up almost always being much healthier than trying to just suppress it and act as though it'll go away.
Tell me something about friendships now. What do close friendships look like? What are the characteristics of really close friendships that can give us many of the protective benefits that a marriage might?
Yeah. Well, a first thing is support. So all kinds of support. There's emotional support. There's uh, loaning me your car when mine breaks down and I desperately need to get somewhere in a car. It's whatever it might be. There's instrumental support. So those are important characteristics. There's also giving each other the capacity to be ourselves as much as possible, meaning you're going to let me show up as myself and you're not going to judge me. At the same time, you'll tell me the truth. You'll tell me what you really think. You will watch out for my well-being and you'll tell me things, even things that are hard for me to hear, if you feel like it's in my interest to hear them. And so it's a whole complicated web of things that can happen in relationships. The other thing we're learning is that relationships provide us with different things. One of my colleagues, Eli Finkel, has what he calls the all or nothing marriage. He believes that, especially in Western societies now, particularly in the US, there's a romantic ideal where your partner is supposed to provide everything. And that's almost never the case in most partnerships. So it could be that I have some friends who I never confide in and they never confide in me, but we're great buddies and we play sports together. And other people who meet my emotional needs and I help meet their emotional needs. So the other thing that we learn is that for many people, it's okay to get different types of needs met in different relationships.
Hmm. So one of the famous quotes from your predecessor George Valiant about the study is that he claimed that he could sum up the entire study in 5 words, and it was happiness is love, full stop. And when you were asked about that, you said that's exactly right. You said that that is completely accurate. That happiness is love. If you've got just a couple of words, you got to have happiness in there and you have to have love in there. And those are the two ideas. And I think that that sort of sums up your view on this. So I have a hard question for you. What is love?
Mm. um, there are so many different forms of love, right? So there, and I don't mean to qualify it, except one has to qualify it because there's so many different kinds of love relationships. But I think at bottom, love is really caring about the well-being of another person, independent of my own needs. That I really want you to thrive, independent of what's happening with me right now. That is a real selfless form of love. And that what we find is that when people get more involved in wanting to foster other people's well-being, they get happier. It's very gratifying. Actually, the Dalai Lama has a great quote on this. He said, "The wise, selfish person takes care of other people." The idea being that when you finally get it, that taking care of other people will come back to you and yield so many benefits, then your selfishness kind of melts away because you realize I'm going to get a whole lot from giving. That's love. And I have one more little quote to add to George Valiant's happiness is love. I would say wisdom is learning not to push love away.
Let's say that we have one of our learners is 35 years old, getting on and getting along in life, working, starting a family, or maybe not yet, whatever it happens to be. Give some practical advice at this point. Everybody who's 35 today wants to be 85 at some point, not right now, but 50 years into the future. And there's nobody who's taking this class who wants to be unwell or unhappy. So what should that person do today who's 35 years old to start really making sure that they're doing the right things and or sowing the seeds for becoming happy and well according to all of the evidence that you've seen in the most extraordinary time series of happiness and wellness that probably exists in the world?
Yeah. Two things, and I've already talked about them. One is I like this saying from from a 100-year-old. He said, "Take care of your body like you're going to need it for 100 years." So you could start doing that today and invest in your relationships. And that includes relationships at work. Let work be a place where you really build solid connections with people so that work is a fun place to be and a collaborative place to be.